So, Virtua Fighter 5 Ultimate Showdown VFES, VF5 Esports, if you're paying attention to the JP release, came out recently, and I've been having a lot of fun with it. You know, this game's had a good bit of conversation around it on social media circles and stuff, so I guess I wanted to talk about my experience with the game. I was able to get an early copy courtesy of Sega, much big thanks to them for that. What I wanted to say was, you know, like, first of all, you have to understand the story kind of about this game, and I think it's really interesting. Aoki Seiji goes into detail with it in several interviews that happened right before the game came out. What you have to understand is they were able to resurrect a 16-year-old game and give it new life in 2021 through a first-time collaborative effort with the AM2 team from Sega and Ryuga Gotoku Studios, which is most famous for their production on the Yakuza series, right? The team is headed by Aoki Seiji, as I stated before. He's the chief producer on this project. And it started in February 2020. That's when development started. They were able to really, he mentions in a couple interviews that the idea for releasing or making a new Virtua Fighter has come up in Sega talks over the years. It's come up a few times. But because this was the 60th anniversary of Sega, they wanted to do something special for the anniversary, and this is ultimately what kind of pushed the idea through this time. So, having started in February 2020, and they have a hard deadline, June 3rd, 2021, because that's when the calendar year for the 60th anniversary ends. Right when COVID starts, the development process is immediately affected. You know, this obviously is going to have a big impact on their productivity for the game, especially if you know about how Corona went down in Japan. Basically, this collaborative effort meant that the RGG team would be completely rebuilding the game through the Dragon engine. With that in mind, the game kind of has a cloud of tension around it, because this is something that was kind of a long time coming, and the discourse that's happened around it, and the idea that the future of the franchise kind of rests on this port of a 16-year-old game, it feels like the future of the franchise kind of rests on this game's performance. But what I want to talk about is just my experiences so far, right? First of all, I think the game's fun. I kind of gas up Virtua Fighter, even though I always say this is probably the game franchise that I have the least amount of experience playing other human opponents in. So being able to boot this up on PS4, which is what I've been playing on, honestly, just the game's been fun. It's fun to mess around with it. It feels I don't really have anything to expand upon there. I just think the game is really fun. I think if you can find one of the characters, if you can find something you like about them, I think it's a real fun game to dive into. I've been having fun just messing around in training mode, going through the tutorial again, and net playing. There were a lot of memes circulating around the net play. Obviously, that's kind of the biggest, kind of takeaway and biggest feature of this package. In the interviews, the team acknowledged the popularity of Rollback, but they said that they opted for a Sega-designed absorbance-based netcode system. Now, I have no idea what the hell that means, but there are theories that it runs off of relay servers that I guess Sega pays for, maybe, but all I can say is this: for me, it feels satisfactory. However, I'm not one of the people, because I live in Tokyo. That wasn't really something I was terribly worried about. I knew I was going to have at least semi-decent net play potential. And there might be features of the game that kind of lend themselves to this too. For example, like pretty big buffer window, frames. I generally, like, the fastest attacks are, pretty slow, like 10, the magic number is above 10 frames, right? So I guess there's been significant reports of people that live, away from big metropolitan areas that have really struggled with the net play quality. And that's something kind of unfortunate. It feels like kind of maybe a missed opportunity there. Other things about the package, though, the DLC is really cool. I really like the idea of doing like the retro polygon stuff, and they look cool in motion. Also, the UI, the UI mods that you can do and stuff like that. The DLC so far, I want more stuff like that, especially if you can go through each version of Virtua Fighter in the past and be able to take something from there, be it the UI, be it models or whatever. I like the idea. I like where their head is at with this kind of thing. One of the issues with kind of remaking the game in the Dragon engine is that in motion, I think it looks fine, but and this really comes up in like round ending scenarios or like win screens. When you see certain stills of some characters just really did not transition well in that engine. If you compare them side by side to the Final Showdown version, I think for some of the models, the Final Showdown models actually look better, in my opinion. This might be because Dragon Engine does really well when based on real life figures and faces, but I don't really know enough about it to comment any further. It's something that I would hope if they were able to do on another game or another version, maybe they could touch up a bit more on, you know? This is, okay, this is one of my favorite things about the package is this is a very small thing, but I hope every other game does this from now on. When you boot up the game and you go to the main menu, they just show matches that are happening on NetPlay on the menu. So it's great, because you just boot up the game, and even if you just, like, you haven't started playing yet, or you're not ready to play yet, you can just sit down and watch matches and chill. It's a really cool feature. I really like it, and I hope more companies put that into their packages in some way. Audio, sometimes, I'm pretty sure the audio in this game is from a past Virtua Fighter. It sounds kind of rough around the edges at some points, but I would hope maybe we'll talk about it in a little bit, but maybe looking forward towards a new title. I would hope that maybe that's something that they would be able to record for, and maybe come up with some new audio on. It just sounds kind of funky in some spots. Let's say that. Something that they talked at length about was because they had that hard deadline of June 3rd, 2021, and they barely made it in time, by the way. They had to cut some items and some modes to make the deadline, so they'll be adding those for free updates, and I guess I'm kind of looking forward to that, just seeing what they do with it. But what I want to talk about now is, I guess, kind of the rhetoric and the discourse around the game. You know, the big thing that happened on Twitter maybe the past week was, like, you had basically Virtua Fighter old heads versus, like, the new gen rollback people, right? Here's the thing. I hate to be like my dad in this situation, but, like, both sides are whack in different ways. So what I want to say is, like, I want Virtua Fighter heads to reconsider the arguments that they make and how they digest warranted criticism. Because, to be honest with you, you can't tell people that want better packages and want better products, you can't tell them that they're wrong for that. The argument of, like, oh, well, you weren't going to buy it, like, that's irrelevant. It's an objective statement. It doesn't make sense. But at the same time, I do think the crowd on the other side, if they're serious about that kind of package quality, they kind of owe it to themselves to make sure that they channel that energy to the proper channels in a concentrated and respectful form, in my opinion. As opposed to just, like, obnoxiously yelling into the ether at some old, out-of-touch, you know, Virtua Fighter player or something like that.
But if we want this game to be truly worldwide, if we want Virtua Fighter to take the scope of everybody and not just, like, Japan, it needs to be a worldwide game by adding something like rollback netcode.
In the end, even if aspects of this port, you know, like maybe the netplay quality if you live in certain areas, or the Sony exclusivity, even if some of those things are kind of underwhelming or a missed opportunity when it comes to expanding the prospect of expanding the player base like that, it does help the very persistent and loyal Virtua Fighter community by giving them a modern port with some bells and whistles that they can work with. You know, for a community that's been putting together great events over the years, pre-Corona, during Corona, all while locked to PS3 and basically PSN and Parsec netplay, this is a big win for them, I think. And that, at minimum, this port is going to be a big W for them in that regard. Well, I guess what I want to say is, you know, I really hope that Sega takes the positive reception to heart and they decide to greenlight a new VF. You know, maybe one that kind of functions as a reboot to reintroduce the characters in the series to a modern audience. One reason why I want that is because I want to see Sega challenge the limits of what a fighting game package can be. You know, VF4 Evo, for me, I always gassed the game up, but I thought it was really ahead of its time. And I think if they take the netplay feedback seriously and commit to developing a netplay system that features rollback that most people can enjoy, right? And they take the time to create a package around the game that pushes the envelope, I think it can set the stage for Virtua Fighter to make a grand re-entry into the modern era. And I think it'll have big impact for lending its presence to the modern 3D fighting game renaissance that we have right now. Anyway, that's been my experience so far. I just been messing around with Lao, man, and it's been a lot of fun to play. And thanks to the VF players that always come through to the stream and give me advice or help me out, answer any questions that I have. That's all from me. I just wanted to talk about the game and my experience with it. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. You know, did this package work for you? Did it not? Where do you want to go from here? Is this something that you would want to maybe approach? And again, this is on us to responsibly approach the people who can actually solve the problems. And if you have an issue, you know, respectfully tell them, you know. Anyway, I'll holler at you guys later. Everybody be easy.